With that, I'll now invite our guest of honor, Shri Baijayant Panda, the Member of the Parliament and Member Parliamentary Standing Committee on Home Affairs, our special guest of honor, for his address. Please put your hands together, everybody.
I find it very impressive that ASSOCHAM is holding the 7th annual convention on this very important issue. And I believe we might be at what is often called an inflection point. The relevance of cybersecurity has been there for a very long time, but India today is poised to make a major leap in terms of how exponentially internet connectivity is going to grow, not just at the individual and retail level, but in commercial enterprises, in many of our national security setups, and in many other ways. If you just look at the rising surge of incidents of cybersecurity, as per a statement submitted by our colleague, Minister Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad in Parliament, the trend in cybersecurity incidents as reported to the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, 2012, 22,000. 2013, 72,000. 2014, 130,000. 2015, just the first couple of months, 50,000. And others separately have projected that this year we should expect 300,000 such incidents. NASSCOM has projected that by the year 2020, India will require 1 million skilled cybersecurity professionals. Think about it. Every one of us in this room has been implanted with sensitive eavesdropping equipment which can be accessed by those who wish to do us harm. Except, unlike James Bond movies from the 70s and 80s, these devices have not been implanted by any enemy country or competitor. These are devices that we voluntarily carry, that have all the means of being tapped and accessed. And as I said, this applies equally to individuals, it applies to commercial entities, it applies to our armed forces, it applies to countries. I want to point out that some of the aspects of cybersecurity which make it different from other kinds of traditional threats are that not only is there no level playing field, there is not going to be any level playing field. Size or the resources that you have as an organization or as a country are no guarantee. You are not too small to be attacked. And no matter how big you are, no matter how many resources you have, how many people, how much equipment, no guarantee that you are safe. We have the possibility of small groups of hackers, agencies from hostile countries that can disrupt much larger setups. Now, if you look at the Indian experience, about 70 Indian institutions of a very sensitive nature have been targeted by a hacker group from only one of our neighbors. If you look at the kind of incidents that we face that are international or cross-border in nature, the vast majority of Indian cyber attacks happen from 3 neighbors and 1 large Western country. Now you can see the disparity in terms of the kind of places where these originate. You can have large Western, well-established first world countries. You can also have South Asian neighbors who are in a completely different category and yet have these kind of attacks happen. Today, we are on the verge of massive exponential growth in both opportunities as well as threats. India has special challenges in the sense that whatever capacity we have developed to deal with these threats, will need to be scaled up extremely rapidly. And it's not always easy to make an elephant dance nimbly to face new threats. We also have special challenges in terms of the kind of backlog that we have in our judicial system, in our courts, the kind of updating that is required in many of our laws, and as some of the speakers have already mentioned, and no doubt others will mention, the kind of special resources that we now need to commit to ensure that we get more of the opportunity and less of the threat. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with all of you. We've talked a lot about the risks that going digital actually presents to a government and a country, but obviously there are huge opportunities. And I will just tell you, in the field of diplomacy, it has transformed the way we actually communicate with all of you. I am happy to report that our two countries have been leaders in this move to digitize, and from Bangalore to Silicon Valley, as was just mentioned, we've seen the leaders of the digital economy and of the digital movement. You've all read in the news lately about the new head of Google, happens to be an Indian American, also the new head of Microsoft, not the new head of Microsoft, but the head of Microsoft, and the contributions that Americans of Indian descent in particular have played in this digital surge have really been impressive. We're proud to be supporters of the Prime Minister's Digital India effort. We're proud to be supporting all the efforts, including the efforts that the Secretary of State have launched in internet connectivity as well. We've talked about the huge opportunities. We've talked about the huge risks. Let me just say that protecting the internet cannot be the task of just one country, however, and it requires cooperation between government, industry, academia, and every user. It's a shared resource, and thus its stewardship is a shared responsibility. The internet has flourished because of the bottom-up, consensus-based process that allows multiple stakeholders to participate in its governance. Likewise, all stakeholders have a critical role in cybersecurity and cybercrime as well. And it's this multi-stakeholder approach which reaches beyond government and includes the private sector, civil society, academic institutions, and all internet users. Multi-stakeholder internet governance has served us well thus far, and it is critical to broaden this approach to other areas of cyber policy, because all institutions and users share a responsibility to keep the internet operating in a safe, secure, and a reliable manner. And to that end, India's recent decision to support multi-stakeholder approach to internet governance is not only a win for India's people, but an example of India's ever-expanding role as a democratic world leader. We look forward to working closely with India and other partners to preserve the multi-stakeholder model wherever it may be challenged. Of course, there are other serious threats to the internet. We've talked about them. Internet misconduct, criminal networks, extremist groups, people looking to do harm through digital means. And again, it's in our shared interest to seek collaborative solutions. But we believe that the best defense is to promote what we call international cyber stability. This means we are seeking broad consensus on what constitutes responsible behavior in cyberspace. Our goal is to create a climate in which people everywhere are able to enjoy the benefits of the digital world. There's general consensus that the basic rules of international law apply to cyberspace, but there are a number of additional principles that should underpin countries' behavior in cyberspace. Let me mention 5. First, we posit that no country should support or conduct online activity that intentionally damages or impedes another country's use. Second, no country should seek to prevent emergency teams from responding to a security breach or allow its own teams to cause harm. Third, no country should engage in cyber-enabled theft of intellectual property, trade secrets, or other confidential information for commercial gain. Fourth, every country should confront malicious cyber activity emanating from its soil. This includes the activities of extremist groups who seek to engage in criminal and terrorist activity. And finally, every country should do what it can to help states that are the victims of a cyber attack. Now, agreeing to and abiding by these principles would move us a long way towards ensuring a more secure cyberspace. In order to get there, however, we must work to improve our own and our partners' capacity to protect against cyber threats. This includes a preventive component through strong legal frameworks and improved training. It also means enhancing our capability to respond to threats by improving the resilience of our networks and strengthening the relationships between our law enforcement communities. Perhaps the greatest protection against such threats is the regular and substantive sharing of information on cyber threats and stronger coordination in response to cyber attacks and cyber crime. This is an area, I'm pleased to report, in which the United States and India continue to partner. We recently provided information on a high-profile hacking group operating from India, enabling our two countries to take concerted action against its threat. We are also engaged in efforts to improve the process through which other countries can obtain bank records and other forms of electronic evidence from the United States for use in legal proceedings against illicit actors. We should continue to build information sharing mechanisms through law enforcement and intelligence channels, as well as our private sector, as the bulk of our networks, as all of you know, lie outside of public and government control. We must also continue to work through the differences in our legal systems that can sometimes slow the sharing of information used during criminal investigations. Given the risks involved, however, I think these are all worthwhile efforts. Just 2 weeks ago, again, I'm pleased to report our governments participated in the U.S.-India Cyber Dialogue. The United States and India held open and constructive conversations about the measures to increase cyber cooperation, ranging from coordinating on internet governance issues, deepening our existing cybersecurity collaboration, streamlining the exchange of information related to cybercrime, and U.S. support for India's ambitious but essential cybersecurity skills development initiative. These and other common objectives highlight the criticality of the U.S.-India relationship, leverage the inseparable ties of our IT communities, and emphasize yet another example of our joint efforts to safeguard critical infrastructure and national security. In closing, let me just say that our populations are among the most interconnected on the planet, which is part of a reflection of our shared values, the shared values between our countries. And the internet is an unparalleled platform where voices from every corner of the globe can contribute to political, economic, and social discourse. Discussions on how to manage cyberspace can be difficult at times because they touch on the core of our democratic values, including ethics, the role of government in society, and economic liberty. But if we commit ourselves to protecting internet freedom, the digital revolution will continue to power the opportunities our societies cherish the most. By helping to strengthen governments, make us safer, boost economic growth, and promote free expression, these are goals worth fighting for. And you have my commitment and the commitment of our team here in India that we are going to continue to fight for these goals as well. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
The world of cybersecurity, the concept itself, and of course the market, demands a vigilant approach and, above all, the ability to constantly innovate. It is thus not surprising that Israeli entrepreneurs embrace this challenge. The pillars of Israel's ecosystem of innovation and startups are the combination between necessity and the culture of daring, what we call the Israeli way. I don't think I need to elaborate on the necessity component. It is enough to say that, like many others, Israel is facing the challenge of cyber attacks. In fact, up to 1 lakh attacks every day against its critical infrastructures such as power, water, transportation, government, military, and industry. In the era of cyber wars, it is no longer enough for a country to defend itself against conventional threats. It has to apply its defense mechanism to the cyber world as well as to the virtual threats that are becoming very real. I would like to say a few words about the other ingredient in Israel's recipe for success, the Israeli way. My colleague and friend, the Ambassador of the United States, is representing a country known for many years as the land of opportunities. Well, may I say, I also represent a country that offers many opportunities, but above all, can be nicknamed above all, the land of dreamers. For it takes dreamers to bring an ancient nation back to its historic homeland. And this, in a nutshell, is the essence of Israel's startup ecosystem. Entrepreneurs are encouraged to dream, to try, to fail, and to try again. The society, the state, the private sector are offering safety nets, mentally, but also financially, sharing the risks. This brings me to another component of this ecosystem, state involvement and stewardship. In the world of cyber, it means, amongst other things, the establishment of regulators, of agencies. We in Israel have established the National Cybersecurity Authority to build market resilience and to define our approach to the question of defense, and we have built and institutionalized the IDF cyber forces. In Israel, cybersecurity is definitely part of national security, but also, and not less important, it is part of the business ecosystem. The idea, therefore, is not only to establish and promote an Israeli cybersecurity industry, rather, it is also to build human capital and use it as a tool for international and strategic cooperation with friends and allies. And when talking about cooperation with friends and allies, I can point out to the huge potential for Israeli-Indian cooperation in these areas. Digital India is one major platform for such a cooperation. The objective of Digital India is to come out with innovative ideas and practical solutions to realize Prime Minister Modi's vision of a digitally connected nation. Not only does it envision transforming India and creating opportunities for all citizens by harnessing digital technologies, rather, it is to empower every citizen with access to digital services, knowledge, and information. As Ambassador of Israel to India, I believe that our countries can join hands together and share best practices to make Prime Minister Modi's vision of Digital India a successful reality. Digital India can help us to enhance our bilateral relationship by providing a platform for strategic cooperation and investment. Let me elaborate on each of these areas. In terms of strategic cooperation, I believe that the Digital India program could help India and Israel to formulate an intergovernmental mechanism through facilitating information exchange on issues and concerns in the field of cybersecurity and in the field of threat mitigation through enabling resolution of those issues at near real time. With regards to investments, our task is to promote perpetual investments and turn them into not only a vehicle for cooperation, but also a vehicle for business. There is great potential for India and Israel to establish together a global presence in the field of cybersecurity through bilateral initiatives that encourage investments in each other country. Prime Minister Modi's idea of Stand Up India, Startup India, could be a great platform for such cooperation. There is no coincidence in the fact that cybersecurity should be and is on the common agenda of both our countries. Moreover, we also need to encourage our young people to enter into those fields. It's not enough that they encourage themselves. This will involve cyber education and, as mentioned before, capacity building. We also need to encourage our private sectors to further enhance this ongoing investment. We've had hundreds of millions of dollars of investments in the last year alone in Israeli startups, and more is coming. And our job is to make sure that this machine continues to move at a rapid pace, and we are committed to it and in everything that we do. We view this as the future. We view this not just as an auxiliary part of our economic effort. We view this as a major thrust of our economic effort, a growth engine for the next 50 years. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, the field of cybersecurity is going to assume enormous significance in the upcoming years. Through fraught and complexities, it also has great potential to strengthen bilateral ties. Not only will it serve as a vehicle for business between our two nations, but it will also help in enhancing strategic cooperation. I'm grateful to ASOCHAM for providing me this platform to address key issues in this field and highlight how this could add more warmth to our bilateral relations. Only last week did Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a fervent believer in Israel's cybersecurity industry and in cooperation in this field, address an issue very relevant to India and Israel and today's discussion, and I quote, "As far as the startup nation goes, I think this has a lot to do with entrepreneurial spirit. I have noticed that in Silicon Valley, you hear Indian dialects and you hear Hebrew. There is a lot of spirit for enterprise in both our countries. I hope Prime Minister Modi will be able to witness this too, even if at a glimpse, when he visits Silicon Valley next month. I also hope he will be able to witness this yet another facet of India-Israel partnership potential on a larger scale when he visits Israel, the startup nation, at a later date." Thank you very much.